Yeah, thanks, Vipul, for that awesome presentation. Yeah, so the expectations are high on me now. So yeah, hi guys. This presentation is about why, what, and how of accessibility, web accessibility. It's not completely a technical presentation. It's more of the functional point of a web application, like how important it is and why each and every developer, UI developer, or front-end developer should take care of it. So before we start, a little about me. I'm a lead UI developer at Unboxed, and I have 10 plus experience in UI development. And yeah, my Twitter and LinkedIn handle, you can connect me anyway. Okay, so let's start. So as Simon Sinek say, we should always start with why. So why do we care about web accessibility? So this is basically my agenda. Like I'll start with why, what, and how. So let's jump in into why. So why do we care about web accessibility? And we might feel like how many people with disabilities actually use internet and web applications like shopping, and why should we actually care and build separately for them? So just to bring down the numbers, these are the numbers which we have right now. Like uh, 1 in 5 Americans have difficulty performing kind of functional or some kind of disability. Almost 15% of the global population in the world has some kind of disability, and these are the numbers which are from the developed countries, but there are numbers from a lot of countries which are not even there. That's why we should care about building web applications which is like a web for everyone. It should be usable by everyone irrespective of their disabilities and abilities. So if this is translated into numbers, then over 1 billion people worldwide has some kind of disabilities, and 253 million people have some kind of vision impairment, and 90 visually impaired actually. So yeah, so it's time that we think about these people, and we should build our web applications for them too. Yeah. So what exactly disabilities are? So these are like the broader kind of disability wherein it is vision, something related to vision, hearing, mobility, speech, cognitive, and neural, and these are the subcategories. So it varies from temporary impairment to permanent impairment. So these are the kind of disabilities which comes into picture while building any web applications. So yeah, so we might think like, okay, but is it mandatory to build web applications with accessibility? So yeah, we have seen the numbers, and many people think like it might be very expensive to separately bring someone to make it build. It's very easy. It's not even time consuming, and I'll show you how easily we can do it. And there are a bunch of compliances and standards across the world in different countries for these web accessibility terms. So if you have any website in any of the countries like USA or Europe or many countries, you have to follow these accessibility rules, so that or there are like heavy fines and charges. Even in India, we have some kind of standards, government standards, and uh, although it's not checked on basis, but yeah, a few sites which are government sites, they have all these standards. So if you go to the latest launched income tax website, it has like all kinds of accessibility, like double A WCAG 2.1 level accessibility. So I'll be telling about those, like what exactly those are, and how what are those. So yeah, from sales perspective also, there are like, I won't go much into it, but yeah, so just wanted to say like it's not only about technical. Even if you make your web application accessible, then there is a lot of upsell for your site also. So so what exactly is accessibility? So it's very simple. It's the measure of how effectively all people, including those with disabilities, are able to access and use electronic information. Like irrespective of disabilities, everyone should be able to access our web application which we are using. And how we can do it? So these are the four principles which will help us any website to completely be accessible. So perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. And I'll go one by one into it, like how we can do and what we can do about it. Yeah. So what kind of assistive technologies we generally use and our website, so these are the couple of input devices which people with disabilities use. And on the right side we see the couple of devices which is output devices. So most part when we have any web application, we use this, the people with disabilities use screen readers. So our application should be built in such a way that any screen reader should be able to go through our website from one point to other point and covering all the elements of our web page. So yeah, so screen readers, it's available on the browser. It's part of any OS like Mac OS or Windows, everywhere it's available. So you can just go to the settings and enable it, and you will start hearing your navigation as soon as you navigate in browser or in on desktop anywhere. You can just see all the information. Okay, so these are the compliance levels which is defined by WCG, A, AA, and AAA. So these are like levels of things. So the standard which most of the websites follow is AA, and it if any website follows AA, then it's like very good enough to for any disabled person or a person with disabilities to access your website. AAA is a very high highest level of web accessibility, and it's little difficult to achieve. So yeah, so most of the websites follow AA rating. Okay, so so before we start, like I just wanted to say, like, what are the testing tools we have in the market, through which we can find out whether our site is accessible or not. So most of these are free, like in the Chrome extensions. If you install one of the extensions like Wave or Axe, it will give you a list of things to be done to make your website completely accessible. Other than that, we have Lighthouse, and even our developer bar also tells you a bunch of stuff. I'll show you how it does. And you can also integrate it in your build, like Axe CLI and Axe Core. If you integrate it, whenever you commit some code, and if it is not compliant, it will just throw an error, or you can break your build, or you can do anything, pre-commit hook, and it will break your build. Yeah. And there is a new company in market called AccessB. It's getting a lot of traction. They use AI to build accessibility in the runtime. So you need not write any accessible code in the design time. Like you just write normal code and just add their plugin, and they plugin basically a JS, and it will actually run it on the runtime whenever your website is live. It will take care of the accessibility things. So yeah, but it's paid and it's not free. Yeah. So now coming to the most important topic, how? So how to achieve accessibility, and what are the four main principles for achieving it? So on the left side, I have shown you what are those main principles and how exactly those help. So basically, whenever we adhere to these principles and write code, the browser constructs an accessibility tree, like we have DOM tree, CSS tree. It also creates an accessibility tree, and that based on that tree, the information is fed to the assistive technologies like screen reader and all, and that is presented to the user. Yeah. So let's go into these points, 4 points one by one, and see how it actually works. So let's start with perceivable, like what exactly it is, and what changes, code wise we have to do to make your site perceivable. So the most common thing which we hear a lot, like text alternatives for all non-text content. Like for example, we have images, then we have to add alt for images. If we have video and audio files, we have to add transcripts and captions. So let me show an example. So for example, it's a simple web page I've built on my local like file system. So if you see my cursor keyboard, when I navigate from the browser toolbar to the web page, it directly goes to this part. I don't know if you are able to see the outline or not. If I make it red, it will be able to see. So it's directly going to the second image. It's not even going to the first image. So if you go to the code, if you see, I've just added image src. That's it. I've not added tab index, and nor I have added alt text to it. So if I add tab index, then it will start going to the first image also. So that is the first principle, like add alt to all the images we have, and add tab index to all the non actionable elements in your web page. So for example, if I give something wrong, okay, and now when I load the page, So if you won't be able to see the image, but at least when the cursor or the screen reader goes to the image, will the person with disability who has a visual impairment can actually see the screen reader will read to them like daily will Caesar on poster and something like that. So at least he'll be able to get the or he or she will be able to get the context of it. Yeah. So that is about the first point. Second is like uh, captions. So for example, if I open a YouTube video, and and for example, if a person with disability who can't hear it properly, so for them, if I present this video, it's like just a bunch of pictures going from one frame to other. But if I switch on the uh, uh, captions, then I think even he can enjoy, or she can they can also enjoy exactly what is happening and what's going on. So that is the second point, like wherein we have to add uh, captions. Transcript, on the other hand, is a little different. Suppose a video, we have a video with no actions, no talking, only something is happening, like birds and animals. So if you see a lot of Hollywood movies with uh, captions and transcripts, they tell you like what exactly is happening, like birds flying or aeroplane making sound and all. So that is like next level of accessibility. It's called transcript, and that falls into AAA rating. Okay, so that's like the first step. And second, so the second thing is sequence of the text elements. How important is the sequence? Okay, so let's go to sequencing here. Okay, now I'm moving my keyboard navigation through keyboard navigation. I'm on save, and suddenly I'm lost where it is. So actually, the focus has gone to cancel. Okay, but if you see uh, in the HTML page, the cancel button is on the second place. But since we have added style float right, it's going on the extreme right. So what accessibility rule says is, if this is the case, then just move this element to the end, so that at least people know that we are going to the end of the element. So something like this. So now even if I navigate through the buttons, a user can know like when exactly he's going. And since all these four buttons are done, he's going to the right side, or the navigation is going on the right side. So the thing is about the element sequencing. The third thing is display, like how important is display. So we have to use proper contrast. So for example, I'm using, so just to give you an example, so if you see this page, the background is white, and the color on the font color is like light green or something, and it's not very clear. So I was just and I feel, because I'm also not able to see it, like it's not very good to our eyes when we are trying to read. So this, just imagine people with impairment, it will be very difficult for them to read it properly. So for that, we actually have standards for having the contrast, color contrast, and font, and how what exactly it is. So let me go through it. Yeah. So our color contrast should be minimum of 4.5. So this color is actually 1.7. So that's why it's very difficult to read, and it should have minimum 4.5. So how do we find it? So there's a there is a website called contrastratio.com, and your background, this is your background color, and here you can give your color in which you want to show your text. So if you give black, it has the highest contrast ratio, and if you give some color like the one which I've used here, then it will show a very less, like it will go to 1, 1.2, or 1.4 or something like that, which is not good. So your contrast ratio should be minimum 4.5. So that rule has to be taken care when you're using fonts and all. Your font family, so there are like a lot of fancy fonts in our these days. So but we should stick to one of these, and there are a few more, but I'm just giving few examples like Arial, Verdana, Tahoma, and Sans serif. These are like standards for fonts. So I can give an example. So see. This was about the font color. So see, this has a font contrast of 1.4 is to 1, and it's very difficult to do it. Whereas this has a color contrast ratio of 8.6 to 1, and it's like very good to read. Red has 4 is to 1. So it's like on the border. Okay. The next thing is the font. These are the fonts which are acceptable, widely acceptable by for the sites which has accessibility to the highest level. And text spacing should be around 1.5 so that everyone can read it very easily and properly. Okay. Yeah. So as we should always browser by default gives us a blue outline whenever we focus on it. So many times I've seen web applications removing it by overwriting the browser styles. But this outlines are very important, and it helps screen readers and people with impairment to see like where exactly the focus is. So we should always maintain this blue outline. We can change the color, and many times people don't want it to be seen when we are using mouse. So you can actually override your style so that it doesn't show up on mouse click, but it should always show whenever there is a navigation using a keyboard. Okay, so that should be taken care. And there are these are like the main topics, and there are a lot more details for being AAA rated, and it's there on the W3 site. So I'll be sharing you the PPT, and you can go through it whenever. The next one is operable. So the biggest the important thing is like we should every each and every content on your website should be accessible through the keyboard. We should just imagine that there is no mouse anywhere, and the user should be able to navigate from one place to another. So for that, as we know, we use tab to go forward and shift plus tab to go backward. So this should be supported. And as I told, focus elements always in view. That outline helps us to show where is the focus. And we should always use tab index as 0. We should not go more than 0, because it will later create a lot of problems, because the more the tab index is, the focus directly goes to that place. So once some greater tab indexes are added, later it's very difficult to keep in track. And so by default, browser doesn't show. So if you see, uh, it shows the focus is there on this element, but it's not there on any other element, on any other display element, because browser only by default shows focus on the actionable elements where there is some action. But screen reader requires to go through each and every element. So this we have this because I have added tab index equal to 0 here. So similarly, we should add tab index equal to 0 on each and every element, irrespective of whether we have action or not, no action on the element. So that way, our screen readers will go through each and every element and explain it to the user. Okay, and no keyboard traps. We should not have any keyboard traps wherein uh, you go to one place and don't come back. So that is something. And when as we know, we have a lot of models in websites these days. So when you open the model, and when you close it, the tab should go exactly to the point where the model was open. So that can't happen by default, so we should write our code explicitly to do that. And we should not design content in such a way that there is a lot of seizures, like these days with ads and all. Our UI shakes a lot when ads loads and it goes off and all. So we should take care of this. And we should also have a skip to content functionality, wherein so for example, I think GitHub or a lot of websites I think has this, wherein we can as soon as you come inside, it tells you whether we have to skip or not. So if you say it's turned on, and I think this doesn't have that, yeah. So once you do, you get a section called skip to main content. So it will when you click on this, it will directly take you to the actual content, what this website is about, and it won't take you to the other parts of the navigation. So this really helps user to avoid, some time wastage and all. And we should use headings and labels uh, 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 properly. Like we should not use div everywhere. We should there are special meanings to h1, h2, h3, and h4. So we can adjust the font weights and sizes to them, but we should always use them because our screen readers understands it and it navigates accordingly. Mm, yeah, so more, if you want to know more about the operable things, we can go to this link and we'll see that. And okay, so the next thing is understandable. Like the code written should be really understandable even without doing. So as I told, the most important part of it is like semantics. So for example, what exactly is semantics? So as I told you, like we should use native elements as much as possible. Like if you take in the page, for example, we have header, aside, section, nav, and everything. So we should use these as much as possible because the screen readers and the browser understands what's the role of those elements. So for example, I'll show you an example. Yeah. So if you say this, this the code for this is like very simple. We have label and select box. Okay, I can even make it span and it will still look the same. There is no difference in the visual changes. But why do we need to maintain label? Okay, and there is a attribute called for. So for this, I'll take you to a place called accessibility. There is a tab in the right side of the developer toolbar called accessibility. And when you go to select, you can see that here uh, it tells us like what exactly this select box is about, and it's about your favorite superhero. So it basically links up the label on the top and the select box. So when the screen reader is going through it, it will understand that this select box is about your favorite superhero, and it won't treat these two elements separately. But if you use span and come here, you won't see anything because label is meant for that and span is not. So that's why this is the importance of semantic, and you should like we should use as much as possible these things. Table must be used for tabular content. T head, T body, everything should be written properly. And I told DOM ordering is also very important. I showed you the difference, like why it's important and all. And yeah, so we have to use all these semantics as much as possible. These have implicit semantic meaning, and browser knows how to react to them. Yeah. So make test content, and so we should always put default language on the HTML tag so that our web page understands like what language it is going through and all. And whenever suppose we have a button, and when you click on the button, so suppose we are doing some API call and post call and it fails, and we show a message on the top. So a screen reader will not know whether to read that message or not unless you add role equal to alert. That's why if you see in Bootstrap alerts or any framework alerts, we always have this role equal to alert. And as soon as it pops up, our screen reader goes to that and reads that, which will make the people with disabilities to understand that the action has failed. Yeah. And as I told, importance of labels and all. So yeah. So this is about the third principle, understandable. And yeah, so these are the things we have to follow, to make sure our page is accessible. And the last one is robust. Like so basically we should write our code in such a way that it should be able to work on all the user agents like phones, tablets, and desktop browsers. And also so what exactly defines, so these are the four things which defines whether element is accessible or not. So if we have this like a combination of these four things for every element, then the browser and screen reader knows what exactly it is and how to behave it when the focus goes on those elements. Okay, so yeah, this is robust. And so for all the semantic elements, all these four attributes are there by default. But when we start writing a custom element wherein a select box is made up of divs, and when where a checkbox is made up of divs for styling and all, we should take care of for these things. So to cope up with these problems, I think um, area came up. So area stands for accessible rich interface applications. This was with HTML5 spec. and this fills all the accessibility gaps which are, so most of the semantic elements already follows these accessibility things, but whenever you are working on custom elements and a lot of styling elements, we have to take care. So we can use this area labels and area capability. So for example, how area helps us. So for example, adding semantics. So we can take an example. I don't have. So for example, we have a checkbox and all. Okay. So if we create a checkbox and add our own styles and all, on the left side, if you see, it's the browser will interpret it as only a text, even though it behaves like a checkbox. But once you add role and area checked, then the browser will understand, oh, it's a checkbox, and it will start behaving like that. So whenever the screen reader goes to that element, the user will get to know that this is a checkbox and he has to take some action on it. So here area labels are helping us to maintain the role state, what is the state, whether it is checked or unchecked, and obviously the role tells us what kind of element it is. So the next one is modifying semantics. So yeah. So for example, we have a button, okay, and it's a toggle button just to show whether it's on and off. So on the left side, if you see, we have not added any area labels. So the browser will understand it's just a button, okay, and it will know the name. But on the right side, as soon as you add area label, whether and you give some state to it, the browser will understand what kind of element it is and what is the current state and how user can change the state and all. So this is the second use of area. The third one is we can express a lot more using area. So um, yeah, so for example, this is a tree. Okay, so we can add lot of more attributes to it for a better understanding, like on each and every level. So if you have subtree and tree, so we can add role equal to tree and li role equal to tree atom, and whether it's expanded or collapsed and all that stuff. So this way the user will easily understand like what's going on, and he can like he or she can work on it, opening and closing it accordingly. And yeah, so you can also give some extra labels and add a lot of relationships to it. So if you see here, basically this button and this div has some relationship, and once you add area controls to it, and so if you see this button and this div, so when you click on this button, this div is going to open. So area controls equal to advanced settings is the id of the below div. So it also helps us maintain the relationship between different elements and understand the relationship. So this is also helpful. And I can directly open this and show you. Yeah, so it's also about the label and select box and option, and also this is also one of the things. So yeah, so we can also see area labeled by and all. And as I told, the states for each element we can give the states, and also all these things are very well documented on these sites. Where if you want to build a custom radio group or radio element or custom checkbox, you can open these links and see what are the minimum standard steps which we have to add it to our control so that it is accessible and it's widely accepted by everyone. Yeah. So accessibility in conclusion, like if you want to make your website accessible, uh, so use so right from the beginning, use semantic HTML as much as possible. Use built-in elements as like select boxes and checkbox as much as possible, rather than building our own checkbox and select box. But if we are trying to build, we have to reduce the gap by using area labels. Avoid positive tab index and give tab index to each and every element, readable and non-readable. And yeah, full keyboard access to each and every element. And make focus and hover equal, like keyboard focus and mouse enter and out, everything should be equal. So yeah, so you suppose you click on using mouse and hit an enter button on or control enter on the button, it should equally behave. If you use div as button, it won't behave. So yeah, so that's why we have to make sure that it's always behaving equally. Yeah, focus style, like we should always show outline when you're navigating using keyboard. um, Your web pages should be functional. It should not completely depend on CSS. It should, the structure should, the skeleton should always be workable. And if we have a lot of custom elements, we should fill the accessibility gap with area. Yeah, text alternatives for the media content, and yeah, text size and color distinguishable. So these are just a checklist of whatever I have told you. And if we keep this in mind, I think we'll achieve at least 95 to 98% of accessibility. The other 2%, if we are not able to do using this, we can use the tools and testing tools which we have provided, and that will help you achieve as much as possible. Yeah, that's it. Any questions?